So of all the films that I've seen over my independent educational research time, this was the one I was a little bit hesitant about. Or I should say the most hesitant. I saw the first trailer and was like, that's not for me. And then I saw the second trailer and thought, okay, that actually looks really good. And then I always get very concerned when you start hearing all this critical praise and people you know and respect have seen it and going, it's so great. I always get a little suspect because I don't know what it is. I'm just hardwired to be contrary or something, but it seems like whenever I go see a movie that everyone else is saying, oh my God, this is the most brilliant thing ever, I'm the one sitting there going, eh. But happily, that hasn't happened this time. I'm going to say this film was a surprise because it was not what I expected it to be, at least not completely. It was better than I thought it was going to be, and a better film. So I'll try to avoid spoilers, really, but most of it's kind of out there. So the story, if you haven't heard, is about a 10-year-old boy in Germany in the kind of the literal dying days of World War II, and he's a member of the Hitler Youth, and he really believes in, you know, Hitler, and, you know, his imaginary friend is Hitler. It's basically the best analogy I can think of. It's basically Calvin and Hobbes with Nazis. You know, where he has an imaginary friend of Hitler that's always giving him pep talks and all this, and he really feverishly believes in, you know, the Third Reich and all that, and until he finds that his mother is hiding a Jewish girl in their house, and the kind of conflict between what he's been taught to believe by, you know, the propaganda and everything of the state versus actually interacting with someone, and so on and so on. It's listed as a dark satire, and it is. It's not as slapsticky funny as the trailers and everything would have you believe. It's pretty funny, and there are some big belly laugh moments in this. This is probably one of the best comedies I've seen in a long time. Yeah, they never resort once to a fart or poop joke. So, you know, already they're head and shoulders above the rest. But the humor is more meditative. You know, I've heard some critics have kind of compared this to the Springtime for Hitler number from Mel Brooks, The Producers. And while that's not entirely inaccurate, I don't believe that is the best comparison. I think that the best comparison to this film is the musical Cabaret, which takes place in a German dance hall before World War II. Especially what really makes me think of that is the number, If You Can See Her Through My Eyes. And for those who don't know the musical, there's this song where the MC comes out and does a love song with a gorilla, you know, saying, if you could see her through my eyes and all this. And he sings this comic song and everyone's laughing, and the last line is, I understand your objections, I grant you the problem's not small, but if you could see her through my eyes, she wouldn't look Jewish at all. And at the time, you know, 70s, or I forget exactly when Cabaret went out, at the time, that was up right in the face. People were so offended by it. And Hal Prince, who was the producer, came out and said that was the point. We wanted you to be. What we were trying to do with this is show you that the way racism and the way propaganda, the way all this starts, is with jokes. It starts by simply making a joke about somebody, and then it gets nastier and nastier and nastier. And we wanted to basically say, oh, you thought that was funny? Well, guess what? You're part of the fucking problem. And I feel like that's what this movie's kind of doing a little bit in reverse. The humor is there, and the humor, you know, having JoJo, you know, talk to Adolf Hitler, and Adolf talking in these kind of anachronistic phrases and, you know, dialogue is really funny. But it doesn't shy away from the fact that it's masking something really, really ugly. You know, there's this really great, Hitler is played by the writer and director whose name I can't pronounce, so I'm not going to insult him by mispronouncing his name until I learn how to do it correctly. But there's this really great scene kind of in the middle where Jojo's having a real crisis of conscience and he's feeling bad, and his imaginary Hitler comes into the kitchen, and it starts off really soft. You know, and then kind of comical, well, that was really off, you know, and all this kind of, you know, you're like, ha. And then, like, seamlessly, he launches into one of these Hitler speeches, and you see just the ugliness, and it's the first time Jojo kind of recognizes, and you can see it in his face, we'll talk about that in a second, the sheer ugliness of what he's been told, you know? And he really starts to doubt it there. So I think this film, the comedy of it is phenomenal in that respect. Yes, you're laughing at it, and yes, you know, it's funny kind of laughing at these people, you know, this movement, which is basically started by a bunch of fanboys, you know, and just kind of how psychotic they got with it. That's almost funny. Taking the piss out of a group of people that really fucking deserve to have the piss taken out of them. Especially these days. It's sad we have to say that in 2019, that we have to still fucking deal with Nazis, but apparently we do. But basically to hold it up and say, these are the people, this is the shit they believe in, this is the bullshit that these people are spouting, and the tragedy of it is they don't see the idiocy of it. I also got to give big ups to the acting in this. The acting in this is pretty much flawless across the board. They have a really good cast, and it's really well done. I think you know, Sam Rockwell is in this, and he's great as like the leader or the camp counselor for the Hitler Youth, who then gets demoted. But you kind of see that he's not completely on board with it all. You know, Theon Greyjoy, whose real name I can never remember, is also in this. And he's really funny, even though he doesn't say much. He just kind of gives a lot of looks. And they give you like this weird, unspoken thing that he and Sam Rockwell's characters are gay. It's really, and again, really brilliantly done. Really smart. But I think in terms of the adults, the acting award needs to go to Scarlett Johansson. I think this is a star-making role for her. I truly believe that. Because we've gotten used to, I have, and I know most people would probably agree, we've gotten used to her as the Black Widow, the ass-kicking sex pot. I mean, the Bond girl on the right side, basically. Not that there's anything wrong with that. She's a very attractive young woman. But we forget just how good of an actor she actually is. There's a scene in this, they never say where Jojo's father actually is, but his father's not there, and he's having a fight with his mother, and says, I wish Dad was here. All right, fine, you want your father here? So she goes, puts on a jacket, gets smoke, or gets ash from the fireplace, smears it across her face like a beard, and proceeds to do this scene where she is playing both his father and her having a conversation with each other as if he was really there. And it was fucking brilliant. Like, I'm watching that, and I literally am just sitting there going, oh my God. Compare this shit to the acting in Midway and how awful and over the top and melodramatic and just bullshit it was. And you get, just see the night and day of it. I'll even grudgingly say that Rebel Wilson was okay in it, even though I don't like Rebel Wilson, like, at all, really. But she had some funny stuff in here. And at least she didn't do anything that made fun of how fat she is. I mean, at least she avoided that for once in her life. But still, I don't know. But I'll begrudgingly say she was funny. But, I mean, the big thumbs up, boy howdy, has got to go to the two young actors. Let's see, Roman Griffin Davis, and Thomasin McKenzie. I think I'm pronouncing her name right. Mr. Davis playing JoJo, and Miss Mackenzie playing the little Jewish girl, who's not really little, she's 14, you know, hiding in the wall. Man, do these two kids just nail it. Nail it. I see this trailer for this movie coming out, which I doubt I'll see, called Honey Boy. And, like, you know how with these independent films, they love to put, like, the critical praise up for it. And this one says, you know, the best child acting, best child performance we've seen in decades. And I'm not going to say it's not, because I haven't seen it, but I'm going to say you are going to have to go a long way to beat Mr. Davis. Going to have to go a long way, because that kid's got game. First of all, it is harder to do comedy than it is to do tragedy. And he does the comedy so well. He is very funny. But the heartbreaking moments, and there are some heartbreaking moments. There's one moment in this, I'm not going to say what it is. It's one of those things you got to see it for yourself, and you'll know it when you see it. That is just the most heartbreaking thing I've seen in a long time in a movie. And to go from comedy to tragedy to all of this, to seeing a young man growing up and questioning what he's being told, it's a lot to put on a kid. And he nails it. He nails it. Like, I can't think of a scene that I saw that I was like, oh, he's not very good there. It's like, no, this kid was killing it. And Miss Mackenzie, young Miss Mackenzie, big ups to her as well for carrying the other half of this movie. She's brilliant and lovely, and I think what impresses me, and I've said this a lot on this show, is that they are both able to convey so much when they're not talking. You know, they convey a lot. The previous scene I talked about with Hitler in the kitchen, it's a weird sentence I never thought I'd say. The stuff that JoJo is expressing all on his face and the way he's watching, and you get it. You get what he's going through. That's not easy. That is not easy acting. And he's doing it at 10, if he's really that old, which I'm assuming he is. You know who else does really great in this? There's another kid in this, and I didn't look up the young man's real name, but he plays JoJo's friend at, oh, now I can't remember what the character's name is. The little fat kid. And my God, that kid is funny as hell. He has some of the best. He's the Dr. Zoidberg of the movie. And, oh my God, he is so funny. And, like, there's a moment when you're like, oh shit, is he dead? And you see him again, and I'm like, yay, he's okay! You know? Just some of the ones. I'm going home to my mother. I need some cuddles. It's just like, oh my God. So that kid, and I'm sorry I didn't think to look up his name, but all three of those young actors really are pulling some heavy duty and are pulling it off. So, again, the comedy and the satire of this is perfect. It's a perfect balance between high concept satire, a little bit of anachronisms thrown here in kind of the way they dance and something. One of the first shots they do of this, like they're doing the titles, is like a German version of I Want to Hold Your Hand, and the film footage of, you know, actual Hitler Youth and everything spliced together to look like they did in A Hard Day's Night when the Beatles, you know, landed. And so it's like, it's really clever stuff. This is good satire and good comedy. You know, I often say on here that I don't go to a lot of comedies, or the comedies I go to I don't like because they're awful. And this is an example of really smart, really good comedy, and man, does it hit the home run just about everywhere. I'm scratching my brain. It's funny, again, you're comparing apples and oranges, really. But comparing this to Midway, where I had a hard time thinking of anything that I liked. And now I have this film where I'm having a hard time thinking of anything that I didn't. I'll say it took me a little while to get into it. I don't know if that's a fault of the film or just a fault of mine, but it did take me a little bit. I don't know why. I think because I was expecting it to be all, I'm not going to say like Naked Gun airplane kind of humor, but I was expecting it to be a little bit more that larger, broader humor. And when it kind of settled down into the much lighter tone, not lighter, but the much more subdued tone, I felt like it was a little jarring. But once you got used to it, once you get into it, you're fine. You know, the film hangs together great. I honestly can't think of anything, and I don't believe in a perfect movie. I don't believe anything's perfect, really. So it's hard to think of something that I can say, well, that wasn't done as well, or this wasn't as good, or whatever. But I mean, truth be told, this was just a really good movie. It deserves the praise it's been getting. I don't know if it's gonna, you know, sweep award season or anything like that, but I mean, I think this is a bold film, a fun film, a poignant film by a young, up-and-coming filmmaker. Of course, I know he did Thor Ragnarok, and he's going to do the next Thor movie, so he's not exactly an unknown. This is a kid who's, you know, finding his feet artistically. He's got a great directorial style, and it's going to be one of those people, kind of like Ryan Coogler, who I want to watch and see what he does next. I really do. I want to know. And it's kind of a thing, if I see his name on a film, it's going to be, well, I kind of have to see that now. You know? So yeah, even the presence of Rebel Wilson couldn't bring me down. So I can't think of much more to talk about this one, aside from, you know, please do yourself a favor and go see this. Go check it out. So final grade, you know, it's obviously an A. It's obviously an A, but here's the thing, and I don't know why this is, and this is the problem with doing the reviews in the style I do them. And that is, there's something keeping me from giving it the A+. There's something keeping me from giving it an A+, and I don't know what it is. Because as I said, I can't complain about anything. There's nothing I can find here in this initial gut reaction to go, oh, well, that was this and this and that. So if that's the case, why can't I give this an A? An A+, I mean. And I don't know, but there's something keeping me from it. So maybe after I've thought about it, I'll find an issue with it, but it's not going to knock it down further than just a basic A. It's a good movie. So go check it out. So I hope you have learned as much as I have in my independent educational research. Back to school, but I love this time of year because we're trying to cram as many movies in, so we're reaching the end of the year, so lots to come. So I'm looking forward to doing that. Next week, a couple of great films, and next week, one of the films, we should have a returning guest in the co-pilot seat. So I'm really looking forward to that. So, until next time, thank you for joining me for my independent educational research, and as always, drive safe, and I'll see you at the movies. Wait, I'm back. I figured it out. Okay, so here's the thing I didn't like about the movie. Oh, fire truck. So there is not so much a subplot, but a plot thread about JoJo having a sister who died of something they never specify, and at first you're not even sure he had a sister. They don't say anything, but somehow she died, and not a lot of people know about it. Because at one point, Miss Mackenzie pretends to be his sister to fool the Gestapo, and it's very. It's a plot thread that seems messy and not as well tied up as the others. So that's what I didn't like about it. That's what kept it from the A+. So yeah, just thought I'd drop in and tell you that. All right, thanks for your time. Until next time, drive safe, and this time for real, I'll see you at the movies.